that was doing women's health. And we started a company together. We sold it in 2019. And I joined venture fund in San Francisco.
Okay.
We started in 2019. We did not raise a fund. We tried to do SPVs, a pretty new offering for LPs. So we started with 1 million check sizes and we grew all the way to 30 million per company. And
Hi, everyone. I'm Matej Psata from Blindspot. This is the Lumos House podcast. It's part of the series that we're doing for all the Lumos houses that we've had this year, the year of the Lord 2024. So we started in Austin, we did Miami, we did New York. San Francisco was last week during San Francisco Tech Week, and now we're here in LA for LA Tech Week. And we're just finding interesting people to talk about different subjects that are related to tech, at least some of the time, but also kind of, teaching founders and teaching people who are in the tech space how to do better in their personal or in their professional life. So I'm here with Julia from Interface Fund. I'll pass it along to her and let her do her intro, and we can go from there.
thank you. And thank you for having me here. I'm Julia Prakapovich, and I'm general partner at Interface Fund. I'm typically based in London, but I spend a lot of time in San Francisco, and I'm probably going to spend more time in LA as well.
Awesome. Tell us a bit about the fund. Who are you targeting? Who are your, target demographics, let's call it?
Sure.
Yeah.
We are early stage deep tech fund, so we invest in hardware and biotech. Biotech also within deep tech. And we do up to 500K checks. We prefer to be the first check and partner with founders as early as the spin out. So we sometimes partner with founders before they actually incorporate a company.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's interesting. Okay, tell us a bit. Deep tech is a tough topic for a lot of people. I feel there's definitely specialists that really know it, but I think there's a lot of generalists out there who've, they are a bit familiar with the kind of all the deep tech space. But could you explain it kind of in layman terms? Like, what does deep tech qualify as?
Yeah, for us, it's very, very, very hard type of tech. So we do the actual hardware. So we do physical products and biotech, which is like bio breakthrough, where we have a tech as a core, like scientific breakthrough as a core. So we usually work with extremely smart engineers or scientists who approach like hard problems with an incredible breakthrough, either in engineering and science, and then they try to build a product around this.
Interesting. And how did you get into this? Because it's not something that kind of just falls into your lap, right?
Yeah, so I started as an entrepreneur pretty early. I started my first company when I was 19, and
wow, what was the company?
So oh my god, I have it's a long story. I was born in Belarus, and I left my country when I was 16-year-old because there were no future staying there, and I went to Poland first, then Denmark, and I just by coincidence went to business school, and I fell in love in business with business. And I started my first company just because I had to pay for my studies. So it was pretty traditional food company. We're making pre-packaged goods, selling them on a shelf of supermarkets, and but we got enough revenue for me to cover my
awesome
studies.
I mean, having a profitable business, first business, profitable business, covering your expenses for school. Not a lot of startups can say they've done that. You know what I mean? So
I know, and I had to really hustle when I was young. So I did a lot of arbitrage electronics, and then that was my first official company where we found out we had a product, we had actual revenue. The company failed for I was pretty naive, so.
I mean, it took you from business school, so I wouldn't say it failed. You know what I mean? Every company has a different purpose at the end of the day, especially because you are bootstrapped, right? I imagine.
Bootstrap, but also my family. We had friends and family around, so we had family and friends who invested in us as well. So we had some angel investors. But yeah, we kind of failed a little bit later. But I kept doing companies since then because I just fell in love with entrepreneurship. I built my first AI company in 2013. It was still not AI. Back then it was big data.
Yeah.
We call it big data and machine learning.
Yeah, there was a trend. Yeah, exactly. It started off with algorithms in the beginning. Then it was big data. Then the whole Cambridge Analytica scandal happened in 2014, I think. Then kind of people stopped talking about it for a while because it was a very loaded subject. Then it turned into machine learning, and now we have LLMs and AI. That was kind of the journey, right? Like in the public eye.
I remember I was at MIT and we did like this big data analytics, and we actually like really called it big data. There were no like something like, well, we actually had artificial intelligence a while ago.
Sure.
So one of like my mentor where he was at, oh my God, it was like 90s or something, where he was doing voice recognition.
Wow.
So that was like a long time ago. So we had artificial intelligence for a really long time, but the actual model training, we called big data for quite a long time, then machine learning, and then we went into like more and more like understanding this, like this is probably the new approach for artificial intelligence.
Okay. Wow, fascinating. So, and how did you go into deep tech after that? So you said, so the packaging company, you did an AI company, a big data company, like 2013.
Yeah.
Take us
through
the
like failed several companies. Yeah? Then I had, then I partnered with UCSF spin out, that was doing women's health. And we started a company together. We sold it in 2019. And I joined venture fund in San Francisco. Okay. We started in 2019. We did not raise a fund. We tried to do SPVs, it's a pretty new offering for LPs. So we started with 1 million check sizes and we grew all the way to 30 million per company. And therefore, like we moved to growth stage. But we were generally, so we covered pretty much everything across sectors, but we all had like very specific interests ourselves. And I was personally interested in like solving the hardest problems. Yeah. It's something like in me was always leaning towards like being very geek and like trying to go into like the hardest problems possible. That's my personal passion. So I was always looking at quantum computers very early. We invested in Diamond Foundry, we invested in Luminar Technologies, and we were going into like hard problems, but fundamentally our team was interested in science and engineering a lot. So we were doing a lot of SaaS and software in general. We did not do any consumer at all, so I have no experience there. But we personally were just geek on like nuclear fusion, for instance, or next semiconductor approach. So we've been generally pretty interested. We did a lot of aerospace as well. And at some point of time, we went so much into growth stage, I realized we just lost the connection with the startup world. So with founders, because when you do Series D, you don't really talk to founders anymore. And I have like finance degree. I kind of like can read those pre-shit, but like I don't want to go there and be that very financial technical person, just like looking at the company's health and strategizing around like, not having this personal feeling of the company. And that's what I find the most interesting work and most important.
So, and because you invest in early stage companies, you told me off podcast that sometimes it's companies that are not even incorporated, right? So they don't actually exist. It's probably a few people with an idea and that's pretty much it. How do you filter out, who you invest in? Because I think it's tougher because when you have the unit economics, at least you can kind of do the math and say, okay, this is going in the right direction or not. But do you invest in, for example, especially if it's a first-time founder? Because I think, okay, if it's a second-time founder or a third-time founder, they have their background, so you can look at what they did in the past and say, okay, this guy or this woman is good because they've done that before. But what if it's a first-time founder and they're building something deep tech, something hardware, they don't have anything to show yet? How do you know if they're a right fit or not for you?
Yeah, that's why I like early stage much more than growth stage, because you work with people and you invest in founders. So when I talk to companies, I talk to founder first, trying to understand the founder. Then even though we are doing deep tech, I still try to come with a founder first approach and then make it proper due diligence on our tech and understand whether science is feasible. But founder come first, and yeah, like that's a people business.
100%. So. And when you say founder first, like what do you look at in their personality? So first, obviously their skills, right? I imagine that's one of them. But what else would you look at in a founder? Like someone's coming to you, they have the technical expertise, because I imagine that's one of the first things when you're doing, hardware and deep tech stuff. But say they have the expertise, what else? What other kind of characteristics do you look for?
I think resilience, great, and ability to build a team and be the leader.
Yeah.
That's probably the hardest.
I was reading something recently that I think I think Andrew actually shared this. Andrew Young, our co-host here, shared that, and I'm curious to your thoughts about it, that you need to kind of be very complementary with your skill set. Like if you're a very technical person, you need to learn branding, for example. Not be an expert in it, but at least understand it. If you're a great marketer or a great growth marketing person, you need to understand tech. You don't need to necessarily be the best engineer in the room, but you need to at least understand what's happening in order to become great at what you do. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so founders actually need to grow much quicker than the company is growing. So they need to be a step ahead of the company. And that's for sure. They need to understand everything that's happening, and they need to have a skill set, not a skill set, but at least like understanding of the general idea of like every single piece of the company's structure. That's for sure. I completely agree with this. Definitely founders have a different skill set. They come from different backgrounds. So if you're like very technical person, you definitely can learn something, but learning is also some sort of like talent in people. Not everyone can learn and move. So like this is something we look at founders as well, because we invested in incredible scientists who just turn out to be incredible entrepreneurs as well. We kind of feel it very early because you just drop them an idea and they get excited, but they also start to like, they're curious, they start to ask questions, they like try to find answers, they ask you more, they ask you for interest, they ask you for like, advice. We definitely like, because we do very early stage, we don't have resources to be helpful like past probably Series A, but on a super early stages, we definitely can help them to understand the process better than, yeah.
So presuming an early stage founder wants to pitch you something, like every founder does, especially if they're early stage, what would you recommend in terms of the process? So do they need to have a prototype? Do they need to have a deck? Do they need to be very passionate and have a team? What are kind of some of the things that you would look at? Someone you don't know, it doesn't have a warm intro to you. Let's say they just cold email you somehow. What would be one way to stand out for them?
Well, that's a really good question. I think it really depends case by case because we invest across all deep tech sectors. If that's biotech, we definitely need to have more data than hardware. And hardware probably will look for a prototype, but typically the main criteria will be they need to go past scientific risk. Okay. So we would not accept the research projects. We need to understand that they're already in a stage where they pass scientific risk, but they're kind of like engineering risk, because we can understand whether that's feasible to build and scale and manufacture. We do not want to risk the science. We don't want to have the binary outcome of the scientific R&D. Okay,
that makes sense. And I imagine when we're talking about stuff like this, you mentioned nuclear fission earlier, right? So when we're talking about quantum computing, I imagine the timeline for stuff like that is way longer than if you look at consumer apps and stuff like that. Because usually when you're talking about, I don't know, a new consumer app, it's usually a 5 to 10 year ratio for it to be, for it to kind of reach its peak, right? But if you're talking about quantum computing, I'm not sure how you see it. Like, when do you think stuff like this will be at its tipping point for it to totally change the world? Because I totally believe it will. I just don't know what the timeline is for it. Is it 5 years? Is it 20 years?
Yeah, so fusion and quantum computer is probably a very binary type of technology, so we have no idea.
Okay, so it's either going to happen or not, type of thing.
We are not. That's why we don't invest there. But if we look, so every piece of technology that we have a conviction in, they do have a specific milestones, and we have a clarity on their commercial strategy, and we have a clarity of milestones as well. I would say that the world become much easier for deep tech companies. Okay. First of all, we have a lot of defense applications. We have a lot of commercialization much earlier than before. I think from data I remember, deep tech startups start to reach unicorn status within 5 years, which is typically pretty similar to SaaS companies. I don't know about consumer again, but like I would compare it to SaaS.
I think when I say, in my mind right now, when I say consumer, it's kind of similar to B2B because a lot of stuff has, kind of intertwined. Like, of course, there are some differences, don't get me wrong, especially if you do physical products, physical consumer products, but a lot of, software things. Like look at OpenAI. You know, is it B2B or is it a consumer? It's tough to say. It's both, right?
It's a new form. It's a foundation model.
Exactly. It's a totally new. But I mean, it has obviously a ton of B2B applications, but you see a ton of creators that are consumers technically using it for, you know, their own individual stuff.
Yeah, I would say for us, some of our portfolio companies started to make revenue on their year 2.
Okay, that's fast though for
That's
deep
pretty
tech.
fast.
Yeah,
And one of my company reached out to 100 million in 3 years.
that's amazing. Can I ask what they do?
Yeah, they do hypersonic planes.
That's great. Tell me more about hypersonic planes. It's a fascinating topic. It kind of goes over my head literally, but yeah, I'm curious to learn more.
Yeah, so like a lot of deep tech companies have a defense application first, and that's actually it's actually pretty nice for investors because we can get some sort of like product market fit much earlier, and there is very straightforward path on how to work with the government. Again, like we're in LA Tech Week. Founders Fund and Andreessen just made several events here and also conducted to clarify how to work with governments. So they brought a lot of founders who just explain like if you want to work with government, if you want to get defense contracts, and that goes like across a lot of hardware from aerospace to nuclear reactors and semiconductors, and probably no less bio but more like hardware. You can get a lot of first applications through our government contracts, and that's incredible. Then like before you're going to reach the end product, before you're going to reach the actual consumers, you can still get early application product market fit within like several years.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And let's talk a bit about the kind of other side of the coin, because we talked about founders, we talked about the tech side of things. What about investors, right? Because we were talking again off podcast for a second about the fact that I think there's a lot of consolidation is going to happen in a lot of different industries over the next years, and I think it's kind of the right timing for it. And you'll have a lot of people that want to kind of go back into the startup ecosystem, maybe not as a founder. So founders who exited or people who have somehow gotten into capital. And some of them might not be experts in the field, right? So say they want to explore deep tech. How would you normally? So who are kind of the LPs that you traditionally raise money from? What's their kind of what's their background? Do they need to be deep tech people, or are they sometimes people that are not familiar with the space but they trust you that you know how to explore and navigate the space?
Yeah, usually people who invest with that, they're very passionate about deep tech at least. Okay. So they're not necessarily looking for just financial returns, but they're very excited about industry as well because. Well, to be honest, you can make money in a lot of different spaces, which much more predictable, less riskier, and we actually on probably the riskiest part of venture capital. Definitely, like our startups their trajectory of growth is very different from other companies. Even though like they get first product market fit from defense, like the actual application that you see, like even from like hydrogen hypersonic planes, you'll probably see like in 20 years. Like SpaceX, they spent like 20 years to actually like catch this Starship booster. So it's not like you need to be passionate enough to be willing to participate in something like this. And we work with primarily family offices and angel investors at this point. We don't have much institutional capital, but yeah, all of them are very excited about the field.
Yeah. I think that's what I was thinking about. It feels more like it's definitely about wanting to change the world, like for real, rather than just focusing on financial upside. You get both. If you get it right, you get both, and the financial upside is huge.
We like we SEC like we do financial return.
Yeah, no. I mean,
we don't disregard that.
Of course, but like I'm curious. Would you consider, like, by your definition, is deep tech hardware only, or could it be software? Like, is OpenAI technically deep tech or not in your view? Like an LLM, not necessarily OpenAI, but an LLM.
Well, technically, we would look at LLM if they're science related. So if they're related to the hardware, we would still need to have a hardware component in this. We can look at the software, but only if that's together with the hardware. We would not look at the software only. But to be honest, we almost made an exception last year because we had several incredible foundation models in physics, and they were providing like some sort of simulation around physical spaces, and that could be the exception we can make, or if that's biology, we make like digital twins and go into some sort of like diagnostics, or it could be like pure software or like pure foundation model for us, but if that enable either biology or hardware.
Okay. And what do you think people should? Because I feel deep tech doesn't get the same kind of spotlight like other industries do. So what do you think people don't know about the deep tech industries and they should know?
That the risk profile in a deep tech companies is not as tough as they actually think. Like we don't invest in science R&D. It's like a lot of people assume we would probably just invest into R&D and wait for the science to be proved. We actually invest post scientific risk, and this is like a huge misconception about deep tech. We have much more data than people assume that we do.
That makes sense. So you basically get in once the science has been already proven, right? You mentioned that earlier.
Yes, we have enough data. Like for instance, we go in biotech, we know that there is a lot of animal data being proven that this specific technology works in animals. So we definitely have some sort of risk, but I wouldn't say the risk profile is very different from software companies, but it's not extreme. It's not like the scientific risk. We don't do scientific risk, and I think like a lot of people just don't understand. Well, they just their assumption is still that we are on an extreme like lab type of approach if we are early stage investors, but we are not.
Noted. Is there any deep tech company out there that you wish existed?
Oh yes, I really want to see the intersection of consumer and hardware. We need much more. Actually, first of all, there's like a lot of great tech happening in either in academia or in different labs, and transferability of this is very low. It's incredible, heartbreaking to see how many incredible science, incredible tech just staying in a lab and never see the market. Honestly, for a lot of things, we are trying to find solutions. There are solutions already, but would never probably see them in the market because there are not enough people who can transform science into the product. And there are almost none, who can transform this into consumer product. And we have a lot of incredible tech that can reinvent the whole healthcare system, for instance. It's much easier to work with, like, let's say, aerospace, defense, government, and a lot of different hardware companies, and even like B2B applications. But finding someone who can build a consumer product, like design-led product on top of the incredible scientific breakthrough and be some sort of like Apple approach in this, Apple has approach in this. I wish we have like more founders like this.
So I guess up to a point, something similar with what AWS did. Would that be an example when they built, AWS within the Amazon infrastructure? Because I know the story of AWS when that was an internal project. The whole AWS thing started because somebody had an idea to do something internally in Amazon, and they have this. They used to have this philosophy where if a manager wanted to say no to a project, they had to write a 2 or 3 page essay about why this is a bad idea, which, funny enough, was a very nice way to encourage innovation. Because if you have to justify why you're saying no, suddenly it becomes more complex. Is that a good example or no?
No. The example would be like trying to be consumer facing. In a sense that you're like, consumer markets are like Wild West for me. Like I don't really understand tech. Well, I don't understand it from the perspective of like consumer people understand. But I also understand a lot of consumer products. I see that they don't have enough technical. We can do much better in consumer products, to be honest. Like a lot of consumer products that are launched right now, especially in the health sector, they're lacking a great validation from the technical community. And we already have those solutions that are just not on the market. So I want to see more transferability from the science to the market, and especially to the consumer markets. But in terms of organization, I think SpaceX is a really good example how they approach engineers actually I know Warda did. They took the same approach to Warda, where they allow engineers to have almost the freedom, but also the accountability for the success and the failure, but incredible budget. But also they assign a project to the engineer, and they give the freedom, but also accountability for the success or failure. So they all own the success or failure. So it's a little bit different approach to the company engineering company building.
When it comes to product development, right? Because that's
when it comes to the product development.
Yeah. Because I was thinking about what you were saying, that it's totally true. That I think it will be an interesting way to see who can mix product development and marketing as well as SpaceX does, or as well as Tesla did back in the day. Because I think that's...
We need more Elons.
We need more Elons out there that really understand marketing, and really understand. Obviously, you need product in order to market, because if you don't have a product, you can't market anything, or otherwise it's just a scam. But I think it would be interesting. What do you think? Because it's tough. Like, people that are extremely technical don't necessarily understand that you sometimes need to simplify things for a larger audience, and people who are good marketers don't always understand the technical side of the product. So how do you think you can find middle ground between that? Do you think founders that are extremely technical should find growth co-founders or early employees? They don't have to be necessarily co-founders in order to do that, because I feel that it's a culture clash there, right? Which is kind of difficult to overcome.
That's $1 trillion question. If we can find a solution that's good. If you know someone who knows the answer,
that's
let me
my
know.
buddy John. Yeah, he does that all the time. No, I don't know anyone who can do that.
The only solution I found so far was the incubation. So we can make it happen. I don't know whether. So there are founders. So right now we just look for founders who have their capability either to find someone to hire and convince someone to believe in the vision and to have the same level of passion for the same purpose, or they are extremely talented and they have this somewhere within them, and they just need to learn a little bit more. So that's the only way for now. The other way is to do incubation, where we just help people to meet and help them to start. I don't know what else. I'd love to put more efforts into making this happen.
Yeah, I think it could be the other way around as well. I mean, it would be interesting to take a lot of, because usually the people treat this, they take technical people and they try to teach them marketing, because it's marketing, it's easier, right? So you already know the technical side, let me teach you some marketing. Whereas it could be interesting to go the other way around, take marketers and teach them, especially because it's so easy to understand product nowadays. There's so many, you don't have to be the best engineer or scientist in the room, but at least understand the core principles, so you can then apply that to whatever you're doing to promote the product or promote the solution, right?
I don't like the word marketing.
Why not? I'm curious. That's interesting.
I think marketing, and I went to business schools, so I remember days where marketing was, it's marketing was the team that exists, marketing and sales was the team that exists on top of the product. So someone designs something and then they give it to another team to sell.
Which is not ideal, right? Yeah.
And I think it's fundamentally wrong, because the product should go from the customer first. So that should be product-led development. And once you do this, the marketing just become some sort of communication process with customers, instead of selling something that someone brought to you. So that's what I don't like about the past business structures. And we actually capitalism was mostly built within that structure.
Yeah.
I see the different tendencies right now. A lot of tech companies are built differently, and they are product first, and they listen to customers first and build products, and then marketing just becomes a way to communicate with people. And that's what I think we can learn as technical founders can actually come with the product first if they talk to customers.
Yeah.
So it's not a special sales skill. It's not a special marketing skill. That's a product skill. The only thing you need to know as a founder is you need to spend more time with the customers. You need to spend more time with consumers and feel what their needs are, and then just go back and do this.
I agree that the setup is wrong and it shouldn't be separate people. So my background is marketing, and when I first started the business,
Sorry.
no, it's not sorry because I switched. So I was in advertising and marketing for like a decade, and then I started Blindspot, and I realized I can't just market air, so I need to have a product, obviously, and I totally switched my mindset. And it's probably one of the reasons we've been doing this for 7 years, because we had to first understand the product side of it. So there was a learning curve for sure, me moving from marketing more towards product and understanding what's happening there and kind of working really closely with our product team. And now I feel I'm somewhere in the middle where I'm involved in product development, and I would define it as kind of product marketing, product development, product whatever. And the only thing that I slightly disagree with is I don't think it's just about talking to the consumers. Obviously, you need feedback from the consumers, but you know the saying that I think it was Henry Ford that was saying that if I listened to the customers, they would have said they want a faster horse, right, rather than a car. So I think a marketer's skill, and I agree, marketing has a bad rap, and not everyone who just puts some ads on Facebook is a marketer. That's a basic skill. But I think good marketers and good people, good product people as well, should understand kind of the underlying psychology, if you want, of consumers,
That's what I meant.
Okay,
Almost like, definitely like not a straightforward feedback from the consumer. You don't go out there and ask them, but you need to understand what they actually need and what can be done and sometimes it's not very obvious as well.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, that's what Elon is doing, right? So
exactly,
it's not like people were telling him, "Oh, I want an electric car," and he went against the grain a lot of the time. He had brilliant marketing for his fundraising as well. Like one example is the fact that you could pre-order Teslas for $200 back in the day, fully refundable, and that helped him fund the whole first batch of Teslas, essentially, because he went with that to investors, was like, I have 1 million pre-orders, I already have 200 million in the bank, I want another 10 billion to do whatever, right? So, but that's a marketing mindset, and in the background, obviously, he actually developed the product. So it's an interesting way to, I think, I agree, I think it's a difficult question, because kind of both people need to come towards the middle. Like people who are more on the communication marketing side need to come more towards product, and people who are product need to kind of stop being very lab focused and come out in the wild and say, okay, marketing isn't that bad, I need to learn parts of it and ingrain it into the product. I want to go back to something, because I think this is an interesting thing that we discovered at a past Lumos house. So you're essentially European, or your background, you grew up in Europe, right? Born and raised. What was your approach towards failure when you were growing up? Because we notice a lot of people who are founders, maybe they're based in the US now, but they're originally from Europe. They don't have the same risk appetite as...
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so what was your experience with that growing up? Like, did you feel, I can fail 100 times, it's fine?
I still work on this.
Yeah.
So because when you're growing up in Europe, there's definitely a misconception about what failure is. And failure is bad thing. It's pretty bad. Therefore, like, people are trying to be perfect.
Yeah.
And they're trying to, because you try to be perfect and you try to make every move perfect, try not to make room for failure. That means like you're trying to decrease the risk in your daily life, in your decision making process, just because if you're going to fail, that's going to be a really bad message to everyone.
Or it's just the end of the world, right? You're not allowed to restart, or no?
You can, but it definitely negative. Definitely a negative path for people. I moved to the US in 2013, and it's been like more than 10 years, and I've been trying to work on this still, to feel that failure is good. But sometimes I also try not to talk about my failures, because I still feel like this sort of worry that people would just mistreat my failures as kind of something bad, that I'm not perfect.
And especially, I think, in your space, there has to be a lot of failure, right? It's more than consumer and more than B2B.
It's actually really good, because you get a lot of experience from failures. It actually shows that first of all, you're resilient enough to fail, then get back on track and do something else. Secondly, of course, you learn a lot from failures. You learn more from success, but you learn a lot from failures as well. And you definitely learn the best pathway to learn in combination of success and failures. Because pure success is also very
arrogant and
it's kind of like you don't. Sometimes it's a lot of luck involved in a pure success, especially very early. So it's great to have a combination of failures and successes, but I still kind of personally, I still have to like remind myself that it's okay to fail.
Do you think it's better, like with your first company, do you feel it's better to succeed or to fail? Like your first one, you're in your 20s.
I think it's great to fail.
It's better to fail with your first, right? That's what I think as well.
I think it's great to have a combination because just failures.
No, in the long run, you should succeed at least once, right?
Yes, but it's great to have a combination even early on because you need to like have you need to have encouragement to continue. Okay. But it's great. Like it builds a lot of strength and it will be a lot of resilience when you fail, but you know that there's something out there you really want to get and you just put all efforts in and get back on track.
Okay, awesome. We have this Lumos house question that we ask everyone. So the question is, what was one moment in your personal or business life that just was an aha moment for you? So, something clicked and you realized you had an epiphany of sorts, and
it happens every day.
Yeah. Tell me about a recent one then. Yeah. Tell us about a recent epiphany that you had where you realized, oh my God, this makes sense now. This is how you're supposed to do it. Take your time.
So many moments like this. I think the life is a learning process in general. And if you don't have these aha moments anymore, that means like you're probably stuck. Mm-hmm. So I do have it all the time, sometimes more, sometimes less. But it's kind of like always, I kind of just find one thing that just completely changed the trajectory of my life. I think it's always, especially when you talk to others and you get new perspectives all the time.
Well, thank you so much for coming and being part of Lumos House. This was our 5th one. This is a really interesting conversation, and it's interesting because we come from so different backgrounds, and that's why I wanted to have this conversation with you, because I felt it would be a good balance between someone who's super technical, super involved in the deep tech space, and someone who's in the B2B SaaS space. So I'm the boring one out of us too, but it was a really interesting conversation. So thank you for coming so much, Julia. If you have,
thank you so much for having me here,
and I hope we're going to see you at future Lumos houses as well.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for having me here, and incredible.
Thank you.